The beeping of machines echoed softly in the hospital room, mixing with the faint hum of fluorescent lights. Anjali stirred, her eyelids heavy as though she had been trapped under layers of darkness for too long. Slowly, her vision adjusted, and the sterile white ceiling came into focus. Confusion wrapped around her like a fog. But then, pain. A dull ache shot through her body, and she gasped softly, clutching her side. It was then she realized she was in a hospital bed. Memories came in fragments. The screech of tires, the blinding headlights, and the sudden crash. Her throat went dry as the truth sank in. She had been in an accident. Her hand instinctively moved to her stomach. Relief rushed through her when she felt a faint movement within her belly. Tears welled up. The baby, still alive. That was all that mattered. At that moment, the door opened. A tall man in a perfectly tailored dark suit entered, his sharp features marked by a mixture of worry and disbelief. His eyes, usually cold and unreadable in the world of business, now softened at the sight of her. He carried a small piece of paper, no, not paper, an ultrasound image. He placed it gently on the tray beside her bed, his hands trembling ever so slightly. "Anjali," he said, his deep voice breaking the silence. "Do you know what this is?" Her gaze fell on the image, and her lips trembled. "It's my baby's ultrasound," she whispered, her voice weak but filled with emotion. For a long moment he didn't speak. His eyes were fixed on the tiny form visible in the black and white scan, his usually composed demeanor shaken. The man, Arjun Mehra, a billionaire known for his ruthless empire, was frozen, staring at proof of a life far more important than all his wealth combined. Anjali turned her head slowly toward him, confusion mixing with fear. Why was he here? A man from an entirely different world, someone untouchable and far above the struggles of people like her. Her voice cracked as she asked, Why are you here?" Arjun inhaled deeply, trying to steady himself. "Because," he said, his eyes never leaving hers, "this child changes everything." She frowned, her heart racing. She had always been a poor girl, working tirelessly in small jobs to survive. Cleaning houses, sewing clothes at night, and serving tea in offices during the day. Life had been cruel, but she had never complained. Her honesty and hard work were the only treasures she possessed. And now, as she lay weak but unbroken in the hospital bed, she had no idea that her life was about to take a turn that neither poverty nor fate could have prepared her for. The silence in the hospital room stretched on, heavy and suffocating. Anjali's heartbeat echoed in her ears, and though her body was weak, her mind searched for answers. Why was a billionaire like Arjun Mehra sitting at her bedside, holding her baby's ultrasound as if it meant the world to him? She gathered her courage, her voice trembling but steady. "Mr. Mehra, I'm just an ordinary woman, a poor girl who has spent her whole life struggling to survive. Why are you here? Why does my child matter to you?" Arjun leaned closer, his dark eyes filled with emotions he rarely allowed anyone to see. For years, he had built walls around himself, walls made of power, money, and control. But at that moment, those walls were crumbling. "You don't understand, Anjali," he whispered, his voice low. "When I saw this ultrasound, when I saw him or her, it felt like my world stopped. I don't freeze easily, but this..." He pressed his palm on the picture, as though trying to steady himself. "This shook me in a way that billions of dollars, endless deals, and empires never could." Anjali blinked at him, confusion clouding her tired eyes. "But why?" she asked again. Arjun's jaw tightened. For years, he had lived with the bitter memory of a broken family, of a fiancé who left him when she discovered she was pregnant, taking the child away, only for tragedy to strike before he ever got the chance to meet them. That wound had never healed. And now, standing before Anjali, with her fragile honesty and the tiny life growing inside her. Something in him stirred, something he thought he had buried forever. But she didn't know any of this. All she knew was that she was poor, a girl who had grown up in the shadows of hardship, her father dying young, her mother working herself sick to feed her, and eventually leaving Anjali to fend for herself. She had never begged, never stolen, never lied to survive. Instead, she worked. Long nights at the sewing machine, mornings scrubbing floors, afternoons running errands. Her honesty was her shield, her hard work her only weapon against a cruel world. And now here was Arjun, staring at her as if she was the answer to a question he had carried for years. "I don't need your sympathy," Anjali said firmly, though her voice cracked. "I don't care if you're a billionaire or a beggar. I only want one thing, that my child grows up knowing the value of honesty, dignity, and hard work. Nothing else." Her words struck him harder than she realized. For a moment, he saw in her what the world never showed him. Purity untainted by greed, strength born of struggle, and a truth that could not be bought. He looked at her, his chest tightening. "Maybe," he said slowly, "you and I have more in common than you think." She stared back at him, bewildered, as he carefully pulled the chair closer to her bedside, as though he wasn't a billionaire CEO but simply a man who had found something worth holding on to. What Anjali didn't know was that her accident, her survival, and her unborn child had just unlocked a chain of events that would change both their lives forever. The following morning, the hospital corridors were alive with the sound of rushing nurses, echoing announcements, and the occasional squeak of a stretcher wheel. But inside Anjali's room, a strange stillness lingered. She had barely slept. Her body ached, her thoughts refused to settle. The memory of Arjun's words echoed in her mind. "Maybe you and I have more in common than you think." How could that be? She was a poor girl with nothing but her dignity. He was a billionaire, living in a world where people like her didn't even exist. When the door opened, she expected a nurse. Instead, it was Arjun again. This time, he wasn't in his sharp business armor. His suit jacket was folded over his arm, his shirt sleeves rolled up, and his eyes carried the exhaustion of a man who hadn't slept either. He sat down in the chair beside her, silent for a long moment. Then he spoke in a voice quieter than she'd ever heard. "Do you know why I froze when I saw that ultrasound, Anjali?" She shook her head, hesitant. "Because once," he began, his jaw tightening, "I had the chance to be a father. Years ago, when I was younger, I was engaged. We were happy, or at least I thought we were. But when she discovered she was pregnant, everything changed. She left. She didn't believe I was ready. She didn't trust me." His hand gripped the armrest, his knuckles whitening. "I never even got to meet my child. They both died before I could make it right." The raw pain in his voice startled Anjali. She had imagined him untouchable, a man armored by wealth and power. But beneath that, she now saw a wound so deep it had never healed. She lowered her eyes. I'm sorry," she whispered. He looked at her, his expression softening. "That's why when I saw your ultrasound, it wasn't just your baby I saw. It was a chance, a reminder of what I lost, and maybe what I could protect this time." Anjali's chest tightened. She hadn't expected him to reveal something so personal, so human, but still she remained cautious. "Mr. Mehra, I respect your pain, but my child is my responsibility. I don't need charity, I don't need pity." He gave a faint, almost bitter smile. "You remind me of myself, fighting the world with nothing but your will." That struck her, because it was true. She remembered her own battles. The nights she went to bed hungry so her mother could eat. The mornings she walked miles to work just to save bus fare. The humiliation of being treated like invisible dirt by people she served. Yet she never once allowed herself to compromise her honesty. "I worked for everything I have," she said firmly. "Even if it was just a meal or a roof for a night. I've cleaned floors, stitched clothes, and carried trays, but I've never stolen a single coin. My child will know that strength." Arjun studied her face as if committing every word to memory. There was no greed in her, no ulterior motive. Just a poor girl who valued her dignity more than wealth. And in that moment he realized why he couldn't walk away. "Anjali," he said slowly, leaning forward, "I'm not here to take anything from you, but maybe, just maybe, fate brought me here to give something back to both of us." Her breath caught. The way he said it, the conviction in his tone, unsettled her. For the first time since the accident, Anjali felt something stir in her heart. Not fear, not confusion, but the faint, unexplainable sense that her life was standing at the edge of something far greater than she had ever imagined. The day passed slowly, sunlight streaming through the blinds and painting thin golden lines across the hospital bed. Nurses came and went, checking vitals, adjusting for lines, whispering softly. But Anjali noticed one thing clearly. Arjun never left. He sat quietly by the window, laptop open on his knees, making urgent calls in hushed tones. Deals worth millions were being decided even as he sat there. Yet every few minutes, his eyes would drift back to her, to the fragile woman who had nothing, and yet somehow carried a strength he couldn't ignore. Finally, when the room was quiet again, he closed his laptop, placed it aside, and stood by her bed. His voice was calm, steady, but beneath it was a weight that made her heart quicken. "Anjali," he began, "I've made my decision. From this moment on, you are not alone. Neither you nor your child will ever have to fight this world by yourselves again." Her brows furrowed, and she shifted slightly on the bed. "Mr. Mehra, you don't understand. I've spent my whole life standing on my own feet. I've never asked for anyone's pity, never begged for help. I won't start now." "This isn't pity," he interrupted, his tone firm. "It's responsibility. My responsibility." The words struck her like lightning. "Why?" she demanded, her voice sharp despite her weakness. "Why would a billionaire care about the life of a poor girl and her unborn child? What could you possibly gain from this?" Arjun's gaze didn't waver. He stepped closer, his tall frame casting a shadow over her bed. "Because for the first time in years, I see something real. Your honesty, your fight, your dignity. You remind me of everything I lost and everything I want to protect. Money can build empires, Anjali, but it can't build trust. You have what this world has forgotten. And your child deserves a chance I couldn't give my own." Her eyes burned with tears she tried to hold back. She wanted to scream at him, to push him away, to remind him that she wasn't some charity case he could write into his ledger. But deep down, a small part of her heart ached with longing for someone to finally stand by her side. Still, her pride wouldn't let her bend. "I don't need luxury. I don't need your money," she whispered hoarsely. "All I need is honesty, hard work, and the strength to raise my child with dignity. If you think you can buy that, Mr. Mehra, then you don't know me at all." For a moment, Arjun just stared at her. And then, unexpectedly, he smiled. Not the polished, charming smile of a CEO used to winning, but a rare, genuine smile. "That's exactly why I'm not giving up," he said softly. "You don't want my wealth, and that's why you're the only one I can trust it with." Anjali's breath caught in her throat. She didn't fully understand what he meant, but the conviction in his voice unsettled her in ways she couldn't explain. For the first time since her accident, she wasn't just fighting for survival. She was standing at a crossroads, between the life she had always known and a future she couldn't yet imagine. And Arjun Mehra, billionaire and broken soul, had just placed himself at the center of it. The days turned into weeks. Anjali slowly recovered, though the scars from the accident remained etched across her body like reminders of survival. Through it all, Arjun was there, silent, steady, and unshakable. But outside the hospital walls, whispers began. The press had caught wind of the story. Billionaire seen visiting mysterious woman in hospital? And is Arjun Mehra hiding a secret family? The world was quick to judge. Many believed she was nothing more than an opportunist who had trapped a wealthy man. To them, a poor girl like Anjali could never be anything but greedy. One afternoon, as sunlight poured through the window, Arjun entered her room with a strange look in his eyes. He was holding a slim folder in his hands. "Anjali," he said, placing it gently on the table. "This is for you." She frowned, hesitant. "What is it?" "Security," he replied simply. "Inside are documents. Your hospital bills cleared, a new house registered in your name, and a bank account set up with more money than you've ever seen." He paused, his gaze steady. "All you have to do is sign. One signature and you'll never have to work another day in your life. Your child will grow up safe, wealthy, and untouchable." Her breath caught. For a fleeting second, her tired heart whispered how easy it would be to end her struggles. No more sleepless nights at a sewing machine, no more humiliation at rich households, no more hunger. But then she saw it, the test in his eyes. This wasn't just an offer. This was a question. She closed her eyes and drew in a trembling breath. When she opened them again, her gaze was firm. She pushed the folder back across the table. "No," she said simply. Arjun blinked, caught off guard. "No." Her voice grew stronger, steadier. "I told you before, Mr. Mehra. I don't need your money. I don't need houses or accounts. All I need is the strength to raise my child with dignity. If I accept this, what lesson will I teach my baby? That life is about shortcuts. That integrity can be bought." She shook her head, tears threatening but not falling. "I won't do it. Not even for all the wealth in your world." The silence that followed was deafening. For the first time in years, Arjun felt his chest ache. Not from loss, but from admiration so raw it nearly broke him. Slowly he sat down, his voice rough. "Do you have any idea what you just did? Most people would have signed without thinking. Even the people I've trusted in business, men with power, women with influence, they would have taken everything. But you're the only one who walked away." Her lips trembled, but she held her ground. "Because money doesn't define me. Honesty does." Arjun looked at her then, not as a billionaire studying a poor girl, but as a man seeing the rarest kind of courage. In that moment, he realized she wasn't just someone fate had thrown into his life. She was the kind of woman who could change it forever. And deep in his heart, a decision solidified. This was no longer about responsibility. It was about something far more dangerous and far more precious. The night outside the hospital was quiet. The city lights sparkled in the distance, but inside Anjali's room, the air felt heavy with something unspoken. Arjun stood by the window, hands in his pockets, staring out as though searching for answers in the skyline. Anjali watched him, her hand resting gently on her stomach. The baby shifted inside her, a faint kick that made her smile despite the storm around her. She had rejected wealth, rejected luxury, rejected the easy path, and though she stood by her choice, part of her wondered what the future would hold. At last Arjun turned. His face, usually stern and unreadable, carried a rare softness. "You've proven me wrong, Anjali," he said quietly. "I thought money could buy trust. I thought protection could be given through power. But you've shown me that honesty, that dignity, is stronger than all of it." She lowered her eyes. "I wasn't trying to prove anything. I only want my child to grow up knowing that no matter how poor we are, we never bowed before greed. Arjun took a step closer, his voice steady, almost reverent. That's why I can't walk away. You've reminded me of the man I wanted to be before the world changed me. And I don't just want to help you. I want to stand with you. Her heart skipped. What do you mean? He drew in a deep breath, his eyes never leaving hers. I mean, I want to be part of your life, of your child's life, not as a billionaire protecting a poor girl, but as a man who's finally found something real. I want to give this baby the love I never got to give my own. And if you'll allow me, I want to give you the future you deserve. Not through money, but through loyalty, through truth. For a moment, she was speechless. Her instinct screamed to be careful. Men of power often made promises they never kept. But something in his eyes stopped her. There was no arrogance, no calculation, only sincerity. Tears slid down her cheeks. Arjun, I don't know if I can trust a future like that. All my life, I've only trusted my own hands, my own work. I'm afraid to dream too big. He gently reached for her hand, his touch warm and steady. Then let me dream for you, until you're ready. Let me carry the weight for once. Her lips trembled, but she didn't pull away. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to feel something she had buried beneath layers of survival, hope. The baby kicked again, stronger this time, as though reminding them both that a new life was waiting to begin. Anjali wiped her tears and gave a small, trembling nod. If you're true to your word, if you mean it, not with money, not with power, but with your heart, then maybe we can start again. Arjun's chest swelled with a feeling he hadn't known in years. He bent slightly, placing his hand gently on her stomach. His voice broke as he whispered, I promise you, little one, you will never be alone. Not as long as I breathe. In that quiet hospital room, surrounded by machines and faint city lights, two broken souls found the courage to begin again. Not as billionaire and poor girl, but as a family built on truth, dignity, and love. And though the world outside would never stop judging, Anjali knew one thing with absolute certainty. She had won something far greater than money. She had won a future. Sparkles the end, a new beginning.